Why people skills, not industry experience, are the most important prerequisite for new cybersecurity hires. That's our focus for today's article review conversation. And welcome to all of you for joining us here on LinkedIn as well as on our YouTube channel. And we're all definitely looking forward to this, no doubt, wonderful conversation. And we have someone from the audience joining us today, Robin Aris Walker, CEO of Applied Cyber Strategy. Robin, thanks for being with us this morning.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's a pleasure. I enjoy hearing these guys go about cybersecurity. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome, great. And we also have Paul Robbins, Jonathan Fisher, Chris Carter, and Nate Noyes. And they will definitely be sharing, giving their perspective on this article. And this is an article that was based on an article written by Boyd Cluis and published by Forbes Technology Council. So, guys, this is to me quite a controversial perspective. I mean, depending on whoever it is that is actually looking at this particular article, why people skills, not industry experience. So, I say no further in terms of all the possible insights that you can actually share on this article. And no doubt I'll be starting with our guest, Robin. What's your take on this article?
I think that it was a great article. It certainly got people thinking about where a person speaks from. So, depending on where you are in your career or what your experience is, you're going to have a perspective that's closely aligned with what you do. So, I think that the article spoke more to the approach that people don't necessarily need technical skills, but they need to focus more on soft skills or leadership skills. So that's the overarching message that I got from the article. Not that it discounted the technical skills, but I think we have to keep in mind that the organizations are so vast, they're so unique, and the approach to cybersecurity is different at every organization. So I think a blanket statement that soft skills are more important than technical, I don't think that's an appropriate approach, but it has its place because some organizations, I'm going to turn this down, maybe. Some organizations may have a need for that type of cybersecurity professional. But I think it goes into more, and I'd just be excited to hear what my colleagues have to say about it as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to take this from a different angle. I really want hiring managers, HR directors that are looking to acquire cybersecurity talent to really take a look at this. Robin, your breakdown was great. We live in this world of extremes. It's either this or that, and there's no in the middle. And I think Robin, you brought up a good point. It's like there has to be one and the other. But it's important. Foundationally, what I want to say is that there are a lot of people out there with great cybersecurity skills that are not being hired because they might not have CCNA or CISSP or NCSE on their degrees, but they have the experience. So Jonathan is a perfect example of someone who has acquired a skill that would not pop on a cybersecurity job piece, but the skill of project management is so key inside of it. I had a meeting one time with the CISO, and she said, I'll hire 10 PMPs over 10 CISSPs any day because I could teach them cybersecurity, but I can't teach project management skills. I can't teach communication skills. I can't teach, intestinal, grit and fortitude to see these things through and not just give up. So, from the article, what I take, I'm like, man, I wish hiring managers would read this and they would say, okay, I'm not going to just look for the standard technology certifications or degrees, but I'm going to look for ways that people can use their skills that are God given or learned and they're passionate about and apply that to cybersecurity.
Yeah, I guess I'll go up next after Paul kind of called me out there. But this article speaks to what my experience is. I spent many years in the military in a non-technical role per se compared to cybersecurity, right? I worked in an aviation maintenance role, and what got me into the field was getting a little bit of that knowledge, right? Getting some security plus, network plus, getting some of the certifications. But really, what did it was the skills that I had developed from outside the industry, right? The soft skills, being able to communicate, leadership skills, and this article just speaks to that. This was also a topic that I presented at a local security conference this last weekend, just based around that. One of the things I loved highlighting was some of those job postings that are good job postings. um, they don't they maybe talk a little about some technical knowledge, but it's more based on having an understanding, having a knowledge of it, not having years of experience. But then it focused a lot on the soft skills, a drive to continue to learn, communication, the ability to lead, to work in small teams, things that we kind of take for granted when we talk about cybersecurity. We're not just this little box that's siloed in an industry, in a business, right? It's something that we should be able to communicate to all business um, leaders, and help them understand the importance of cybersecurity, of compliance, and that's really done through the soft skills. You can't have someone that's just a completely technical person come in there and to really help people understand the need for why we need to develop these tools, build these tools. Why do we need to really relook at our training as far as cybersecurity awareness? Right, it comes down to those soft skills.
Yeah, I guess I'll jump in on this one. Um, so yeah, I did really enjoy the article as well. I think when it comes to soft skills, in this example, it's using cybersecurity, but I think it's much broader than that, right? So when individuals get certified, within a certain skill set, with Jonathan just brought up just briefly. Um, it proves that you are able to learn those skills, certified in whatever profession that you're in. Um, when it comes to communication, I think it also encourages a level of respect when you're working with other individuals. Like I've seen so many companies where, you know, different application owners are siloed in their own little bubble, right? And there's no communication, right? So when a problem were to arise, no one knows how to directly, solve that issue, right? Because everyone's looking at their, this isn't my problem, or this problem didn't come from me, rather than working with the other groups, having a more cohesive conversation when it comes to troubleshooting and solving issues. Um, going back to cybersecurity, it's all about communication, right? I mean, for example, the big hack at MGM that happened um, just recently. What was reported? It was reported originally in the news that it was a 10-minute phone call, and after the 10 minutes, they were able to get into MGM and wreak havoc. But once further communication was established and understood, and the real message came out, you found out that it was two hacker groups. One collected Okta credentials, called into the IT department of MGM to then ask for duplicates for those Okta credentials, so they could, broaden, the scope of their attack. The hackers had better communication than the IT individuals within MGM, right? So at the end of the day, communication is key for albeit not just cybersecurity, but just constant basic communication in general, right? Can't solve problems without communication. Can't figure out something's going on without communication. Those soft skills are what you really need at the end of the day.
So so Nate, I agree with that, and I love the way Robin kind of took a nuanced approach in her assessment of the article. I look at it as the analogy that I would apply here is that of the body, right? Um, Communication is sort of the heart of the matter, right? It's what gets you to demonstrate your knowledge of cybersecurity, but also the importance of the message that you're bringing across. Um, I, I struggle with this one because, if you're a good communicator, you have good soft skills, but you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. You'll dazzle people all day and we'll get nowhere. So I think it's, you know, when we look at these skills, the skill set, there's some that are vital. So like your heart is a vital organ, but you need your fingers to pick up food to put in your mouth so you can chew it, swallow it, process it in your stomach to have the energy to think and talk. So I think why am I using that analogy? Because I think, for example, if you were to go down the path of saying, okay, um, here's an attack that happened based on our MITRE attack, blah, 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 blah. We were able to detect and look at the tactics, techniques. We were able to identify the advanced persistent threats it's in China. Blah, blah. If you have no idea what MITRE means or what attack means or what a threat is, you can talk all day, but your audience will not understand where you're going. So I'm really struggling with the article. Because you can't say one is important and the other isn't. They go hand in hand. One may be more important, but the other items are also critical. The technical skill is also critical because that's what allows you to understand what you're saying. Kind of like what I think it was Aristotle, right? You're able to speak, right? Ethos, pathos, and logos. How are you able to demonstrate your understanding of a topic, right? You're able to communicate. So that's my stance. I know I'm kind of babbling, so I'll shut up. But
Mhm.
uh, that's the way I look at it.
Well, there's a reason. There's a reason why when you're in law school, you have to take 9 to 12 credit hours of public speaking because it's you have the head knowledge. Like if you read a case, not multiple, you read a case. There's 500 pages of data that you have to ascertain and to be able to discuss. So Umar and Robin, to your point, you have to have basic knowledge of what it is that you're talking about. You just can't get up there and give a 3 point sermon and wow everybody and have everybody come up. You have to have the knowledge of what it is that you're speaking about. But the skill is taking that 500-page case and distilling it down to a half a page and just bringing it out. That's what the executives want. I don't know if we've sat in boardrooms before with presenting findings to them, and it's a Nessus report with red, medium, high, critical, 255, 10 dot, 10 dot, whatever, and their eyes just glaze over because they just don't understand it. The real skill is that you know exactly what that technical pieces, but how do you display that to the executives to say, okay, this is critical. If this were to get exploited, we could lose $50 million for the business. Can we afford to lose $50 million of the business? So that's what they want. That's what they want. But you have to be able to know the knowledge of it and have the confidence of the people that you're distilling this information to get the buy-in to the simplicity that you're bringing of the communications that you're bringing to the organization.
Yeah, and I also think that, in the article, he speaks about having leadership skills and that everyone should have these leadership skills and everyone should be a leader. But I like to think of an organization having roles and responsibilities for leaders. There may be leaders that are designed, people that are designed to be leaders. They come in, they train to be leaders, they practice leadership. But then there are the people who execute on the ground. So when you think about making everybody a leader, that just really does not make sense, especially in our space, because you have those people who just want to be heads down, on eyes on glass all day. They want to spit out reports in raw form, let somebody else transform them, and then have leadership brief it, right? So I think we have to be careful about putting people in a place and making, especially entry level people, making them think you need to be a leader. Everybody doesn't need to be a leader. And that will take that. I've had conversations where people say, well, I think I need more leadership skills. And they hear conversations like the one we're having today, and they begin to think, oh, I am not a good speaker. I've never been to college. I have not taken public speaking. I'm fearful of speaking. If someone asks me to speak to anybody in charge, I'm going to break down and cry. So that happens. And we have to allow people to be who they are. So if you know that you have a team member that never wants to get in front, allow that person to stay in their silo and do their work and deliver. So I think we need to be clear that everybody does not have to be a leader. I think everybody should understand a leader's role. Very good point in the article. He expresses an experience where he didn't understand why that manager was being hard on him or asking for something, was slightly offended. But as he grew and he matured in the industry, he learned that, hey, that leader was getting to the bottom line, and we don't have all the answers. The technical team may not have the why behind an ask. But if you allow that person, if you understand what a leader is looking for, then you'll be in a better position to receive from that leader. So I think awareness of leadership is important, but not necessarily having the skill of leadership.
I love that. I love that because it's funny, when I mentor or coach professionals, I always use a mnemonic. I call it tech, and depending on the level the person is at, my mnemonic is okay. People have to trust you. You have to have executive presence, right? That's the E. C is you have to be confident,
Hmm.
and H is you have to be humble. The E, I usually switch it around. If the person's a lower level person, I don't talk about executive presence. I use the E as experience. Do you have the requisite experience? Because a lot of times, just like you said, when someone is depending on where they are in the organization, uh, and other factors such as your personality, your ability to communicate a message, or maybe you're just having a bad day, right?
Exactly.
That could impact the way you communicate. So I think, yeah, having that self awareness from the communicator's perspective is critical because, yeah, not we're not all going to be leaders. Some of us need to be, Indians, and others need to be chiefs, right? And sorry if I offend anyone with that. It's just something I learned from. So I want to be culturally sensitive, but I think you get the point. Is that sometimes you just have to be a role player, in the sense that, yeah, you may not have the requisite skills needed to communicate an effective message, but you do have the technical chops,
Yep.
and therefore you either build on, where that gap is. You don't always have to focus on, okay, I'm going to communicate or I have soft skills. Yeah, maybe you need to go configure the firewall and make sure all the ports are. So I love where you're going with that, Robin.
If I could interject real quick on leadership, because that was something that I thought was interesting in the article. So this is kind of stereotyping, but there is some data to support this statement, is that super technical people are really good at being technical, but personable and leadership is not exactly their forte. And so the data to support that is my youngest son, Theo, and he's a super technical kid, but verbally, and exuding that confidence naturally is not his strength. But if you see his group of friends, I mean, it's a rough and tough group of kids. They follow him everywhere. They're, if he says, "Hey, I want to go play basketball," they're like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's follow you." But he's not that outspoken piece. So I think from a leadership perspective, it's getting confident, like you said, Chris, in your statement, and Robin, you alluded to this as well. Be confident in what it is that you're good at, and people will naturally follow you. You don't have to be General Patton out there and barking out orders and Tom Brady, guiding the team down the field verbally and whatever. It's taking what you are good at and being confident in it, and then people will naturally follow and trust your leadership from there. Because I don't want that, the way that it came out, I don't want that to discredit somebody that reads that and says, well, I'm not outspoken or I'm not personable, so I can't lead. No, you can lead. It's just leading in the way that is the most comfortable to you, and aligning with your skill set to do that.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
leadership amongst their peers, right? So in that peer group of those super techies, there's always a leader. There's always that one that's going to take the lead and say, you know what, based on my experience, we're going to do it this way. Let's try it. Everybody follows, they get lessons learned. And that person may be the liaison that will deliver the message to leadership. So you're right. Within that peer group, you can lead. So I think that's a very good point, Paul.
And I think with that, all that's been said with the leadership, it's it's more the ability of being self-aware of where you're at and where you belong on that team. I'm taking my experience from the military where, in a way, they like to force people into leadership roles, but not everyone is. Not everyone wants to be in there. I've seen people who just kind of, sat back and didn't push themselves to get into that next leadership, but they were really great where they're at, very technical in that skill that they had. And, I was fine with that because they understood where they were at. They understood kind of the dynamics between the leader, the manager, and what they had to do and what they had to accomplish and kind of what they were able to provide to the team. And I think that's, to me, that's the sense I take on this part of the leadership, is just that being the self-aware of where you're at. Again, just like Chris and Robin has said, that it's not everyone needs to come in to be a leader, right? When you hire a teenager to work at McDonald's, right? You they're not coming in there with the expectation of being the general manager of that place, right? They're there to do their job that they agreed to, right? And understanding where they belong. I think one thing to maybe do as the managers, help them understand how their task and what they contribute, how it helps the overall business. And I think that's it. As far as leadership, I think that kind of will roll over onto the manager of being aware and developing their teams in a sense that that everyone works together. The thing I like about overall that we've been saying in the very last piece of that article, which I'm probably jumping ahead, but it talks about it needs to be a balance, and I know Chris mentioned that, right? There needs to be a balance between the technical skills and the soft skills, and that's what I teach to people, and what when I mentor people who want to get out of the military or get into cyber, right? I mentioned, like, if you go into GRC, it's an easier path, but you still need to have technical skills, right? I highlight, definitely get knowledge on Security Plus and Network Plus, right? Understand how the basic fundamentals work, because then you'll be able to talk effectively to that and understand how to effectively look at evidence, or prepare for audits, or just ensure compliance is proper for controls. And so to me, it's a good balance of both.
Agreed. And I think I know we'll probably go over a little bit. Uh, Two books that came to mind as we were talking. Two books that came to mind. Everyone who follows me knows that I love to read. I would recommend for anyone in the audience. One is Quiet by Susan Cain, and the other one is it's by Amy Cuddy, and it talks about that soft skill. You may because a lot of times imposter syndrome. When Robin, when you said that, I immediately how some people may not be cut out, or some people may just be shy, or they have challenges just standing in front of an audience and delivering a message, or even sitting with a CEO. I think, uh, again, the book I would recommend is Quiet by Susan Cain. She talked about a lot of introverts. The other one is by Amy Cuddy. I can't remember. If you Google her, you'll find her, but very good book in terms of how to just build that confidence muscle and be able to effectively deliver a message even when you're shaking at the knees. So something, for the audience to think about. Um, in acquiring your ability to lead and to communicate effectively.
Uh, Yeah, I think this is a very important point you have made here, Paul. I was just about to ask a question in terms of um, how do you actually teach these skills? Are these skills something that you can package within a particular course? I mean, when you look at most of these degree programs or certifications, there are so many emphasis on knowing the various skills that are required to execute these job roles. Where does the soft skills actually fit in all of these various programs? What's the best, I mean, recommendations for especially upcoming cybersecurity professional to garner these skills to create a balance that can actually get them forward from a hiring perspective.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
tell security professionals all the time, if you're going to take a SISM class or a CISA class or CISSP, use that same money and same energy to take classes in writing skills, communication skills, project management skills, because that's what the industry needs. You know, if you read a report that's written or a policy and procedure that's poorly written, that's now a vulnerability. You know, that's a vulnerability if you can't write correctly or communicate verbally correctly. So if that's a weakness, then I would say that's important of a class to take as a technical class, because you got to be able to articulate what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, and I think leaders have an opportunity with new people coming into the industry to let them shadow. So maybe shadowing to coming to a briefing so that they're in a position to understand what happens actually at a briefing, to hear the tough questions that senior management may ask, and go back and debrief and say, let's talk about the meeting today. What did you get out of that? How would you have explained that differently? Give them an opportunity to actually do the work and see it in action. And you don't really get that if you're not on site, but that's where mentoring comes in. So live mentoring. So you think about tabletop exercises. That's just our way of life. Take people through tabletop exercises. Walk them through. It's enough. You have enough colleagues and industry friends where if you really care to get a group of people in the industry, you may have a day where you sit down and say, let's role play a executive briefing on this finding. So take the time to do that, and everybody gets engaged that way.
I love it. Yeah, part of being a well-rounded professional, right? And they say the old adage, "A rising tide lifts all boat." I think it's appropriate at this point. Um, so I have to drop as well, but I know making sure that as someone who's aspiring to a leadership role in security or anywhere in the organization, having the communication skill is just as important. More so, but I think having the technical chops to go along with that so you can deliver your message effectively is going to make you an even better, well rounded professional. So don't just discount the technical piece of it. You do need that, but pay a lot of attention to your ability to communicate and the softer skills as well.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
great.
old phrase there of you can teach technical skills, but you can't teach soft skills, I think is BS, right? You can teach soft skills as well, and it's just as much work as it is teaching technical skills. It might take a little longer, but what it's going to do is cause someone to maybe get out of their comfort zone compared to a technical skill, right? It's easy for me to sit down and just go through, do study, do courses, do prep exams to get these technical skills, right? Get hands on. It takes a little bit more of that, getting out of the comfort zone to learn the soft skills, but you're able to learn it, right? You can take someone who doesn't have it, if they're willing to learn it, they'll be able to do it through mentoring, like Robin said. Um, yeah.
Awesome. I think those are definitely great points to actually conclude this awesome conversation. Not certain if Nate has any final input before we actually. Okay, great. So that's a wrap for us today, guys. I hope you found this conversation helpful for your career development. I mean, see you next time, same place, for another informative conversation. And definitely don't forget to share this with your network. So, guys, have a wonderful day. Look
I do have
forward.
one thing I'd like to say
Oh, yes.
before we jump. Robin, it was a pleasure to have you on this podcast, and I'm glad to meet you. So, and great conversations all around, everyone. So, let's keep up the good work and knock it out next Thursday, right?
Awesome.
Happy
Looking
to be
forward.
here. Thank you.
Okay,
All right,
great.
take care,
Have a good
everyone.
day.
Okay.
All right, bye, guys. Wonderful day.